the human toll of something like the war in Iran is, whether you ultimately think it's justified or necessary or not, is significant and tragic, and it shouldn't be, I think, defiled down to a Call of Duty edit. War is not a video game. So I'm honestly kind of disturbed by this rhetoric and messaging.
Hey guys, Brad here, bringing you some more bonus content. I had the honor of appearing on a friend of mine's TV show over the weekend, Batya Ungar-Sargon, over on NewsNation, the cable TV show, network. And we discussed/debated a couple interesting topics, including meme warfare and the White House's use of Call of Duty clips to promote the conflict in Iran, as well as Trump's new DHS nominee and a couple other things. And I thought it was a really interesting conversation I wanted to share with you guys. And I also love it because Batya is a big-time Trump fan, and I am not, to say the very least. In fact, there are some things we agree on for sure, but I love that we've been able to build out a friendship and have an established professional relationship, even though we disagree on most things and agree on very little. And I always appreciate her perspective and her commitment to hearing out different ideas and debating the topics of the day. So watch our interview. It's about to come up. I'll play it right after this. And make sure that you hit the like button, subscribe, and be sure to tune in and check out her show sometime. It's I often disagree with what's on it, but you know what? It's always unique and worth watching. So without further ado, let's watch the interview, and thanks so much for being here.
Welcome back to the show. While our great men and women in uniform have been busy pounding Iran's military capabilities, another front has opened up in the White House comms department, the meme front. Politico reports that President Donald Trump's hype campaign for the Iran war has demolished decades of presidential decorum around wartime messaging. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Kane have given regular briefings to the mainstream press. But the White House comms department has also been messaging Gen Z where they live, online, creating TikTok-style mashup videos of missile strikes spliced into movie clips and video games to sell the war to the younger generation. Memes like the one we're about to show you, using real footage of strikes in Iran with a kill streak animation from the popular video game Grand Theft Auto.
Here we go again.
There are others like this one, mixing footage of monstrous NFL hits with recent strikes in Iran to the tune of Thunderstruck. Or this one depicting some of America's most patriotic movies, again with those real war strikes spliced in. Of course, many of the usual suspects have deplored the use of dank memes to sell a war, but the White House is loving it. "We're over here just grinding away on banger memes, dude," a senior White House official said. Here to discuss the meme warfare is host of the Brad versus Everyone podcast, Brad Polumbo, one of our favorites. Brad, thank you so much for joining us. How do you feel about meme warfare?
Well, listen, you know, I'm generally somebody on board with this kind of thing, and I think it can be an effective messaging strategy at times, but I don't like it applied to warfare. And I don't like it in this context of the Iran war. It's one thing if you're talking about healthcare or immigration or the border wall, but people have died. U.S. service members have lost their lives in this operation, and so have innocent Iranian civilians, of course, not intentionally, but still, it's like the human toll of something like the war in Iran is, whether you ultimately think it's justified or necessary or not, is significant and tragic, and it shouldn't be, I think, defiled down to a Call of Duty edit. War is not a video game. So I'm honestly kind of disturbed by this rhetoric and messaging from the White House.
Do you feel like a more somber tone is called for? Well, that brings me to the next thing I wanted to discuss with you, which is that after the Ayatollah Khamenei was killed in the initial strikes, after a while, his son, Mojtaba Khomeini, was appointed, and it was reported that the president was informed that he's actually gay. And President Trump apparently laughed about this. And again, this launched 1,000 memes. We have our favorite, the Babylon Bee, which came out with a number of them, headlines sort of mocking the irony of the head of an Islamic regime that kills gays being outed as gay. They came up with this great Headline 9 clear signs that the Ayatollah is gay, and so forth. And it's funny because my husband was very offended by this because he felt that it was, you know, again, not an appropriate way to talk about people during wartime. I thought they were pretty hilarious. I wouldn't have, I think, if not for the treatment of Iran, of leaders like this Mojtabe himself, of gay people in Iran, which seemed to sort of justify it. Where did you fall on this?
Well, I think it's the Babylon Bee is going to do parody and satire, so I'm not bothered by that so much. I just think it's a little different when it's the White House account. But I think it's obviously, I understand why Trump laughed, because it's ridiculous if true, but it actually, on one level, it's funny. On another, it's sad but unsurprising. You see this often in Sharia law regimes. It's like rules for me, but not for thee, but not for me, when it comes to the regressive, social, frankly, evil repression that regimes like the Iranian regime and others impose on gay people or on women or what have you. It often doesn't apply to the elites or the people with powerful connections. And to me, that makes it like exponentially worse. It's already horrifying, but they're not even willing to live by the actual dystopian, regressive regime they want to impose on their citizens. And so to me, it's a farce, but if true, of course. But oh, wow, what an unexpected twist.
And I also wanted to give you an opportunity to respond to something you've been following, which is the new DHS head, Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, replacing Kristi Noem, who was so scandal-plagued. In his hearing, Mark Wayne Mullen said his #1 goal will be to follow the law, but also to stay out of the headlines. He seems very committed to things like warrants, which I know is very important to you, arrest warrants. What do you make of this? You're not a big fan.
Well, I was really disturbed during the hearing because I remember when Senator Rand Paul was brutally assaulted years ago, right? Many liberals and progressive commentators mocked him and celebrated the violence because they hate Rand Paul so much for his eccentric and quirky and hardline views. But apparently Mark Wayne Mullen, just in February, said he completely understood why somebody would beat up Rand Paul and called him a snake. And Rand Paul asked him to apologize, and he refused. If he'd apologized, I'd feel differently. But after Charlie Kirk, after the attempted assassinations of President Trump, the lawmakers in Minnesota, I feel like political violence and unequivocal condemnations of it needs to be a hard red line. So until Mark Wayne Mullen gets his anger streak under control, it's not just a personal beef to me. It's a character and fitness issue. We need a cool head in charge of the law enforcement agency and overseeing ICE and these confrontations and everything, not a hothead. So I'm against Mark Wayne Mullen, and I think he needs some anger management classes stat.
Very interesting. Why we always love to bring you on, Brad, to hear a perspective we hadn't thought of. To me, I just saw somebody putting his own personal feelings ahead of what's best for the nation, a person who's promising to bring that very, cool head to DHS. Brad, thank you so much for joining us. God bless and protect you.